Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Sewer Commission. This meeting was rescheduled for this evening due to the snowstorm on Tuesday evening, and it was decided that not to bring people out in a snowstorm. We'll begin with a roll call, starting with Corey.
Corey White, Sewer Superintendent.
Lynn Pooler, Sewer Secretary.
Dave Pierce, Commissioner.
Tim Redmond, Commissioner.
Daniel Taylor, Commissioner.
Michael Trank, Consulting Engineer.
Jim Craig, Select Board Representative.
Thank you everyone for coming. We're waiting for one more member of our staff, so we'll just do a few things in the meantime. We'll do approval of minutes. We'll do it out of order. We'll start with approval of minutes. We have November 14th to consider.
Motion to approve the minutes, November 14th.
I'll second the motion.
Motion been made to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion on the motion?
I have no changes.
Nope.
No discussion. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. We also have minutes from December the 5th.
I'll make,
Like short minutes for meeting.
make a motion to approve the minutes of December 5th as presented.
Well, second.
Yes,
Go
second.
go ahead, Dave. Motion's been made to approve the December 5th meetings as presented. Any
Let's go back first. The last minutes that we approved, I don't think you were at that meeting, so I don't think you
Oh.
can make a motion to approve it.
I see his name there.
Name's here.
On the,
Yeah, I was at that.
Yes.
oh, you were?
It was the one before, and I abstained for the last one, I thought.
Yeah, fine. I didn't read that you weren't at the prior meeting, but you can make a motion,
Okay.
or second a motion, doesn't really
Maybe
matter.
I was.
No, he wasn't there on the.
Okay, maybe it wasn't.
Not the 14th. you weren't there.
Then
We'll
I
go back.
watched it.
We'll go back to that.
Okay.
So let's go back to December
Yeah.
5th. You made a motion, Daniel, you were at the meeting, David and I were all there.
Yep.
David seconded. All those in favor of, any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? We'll return to the minutes of number the 14th. We're gonna,
Dave made the motion, you can second it.
I will second the motion
Yes.
because I was there,
November 14th minutes, motion to approve.
and I second it. So all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention?
abstained.
One abstention. Okay, minutes are careful. We have our second sewer employee. Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Assistant Sewer Foreman Keith Cantor.
Thank you, Keith, for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, we have public comment, as usual, in the beginning of our meeting. Is anyone here for public comment this evening? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Okay, we have two items on our new business agenda tonight. We have Doug McGuire here to represent the project on Route 114 next to the Shell station. I can't remember the name of the company that he represents, but anyway. So please come up.
As many times as you've been before the board.
No, I know Doug's company, Dubay, but I can't remember the name of the project, name on the project.
Well, it's because we changed it a few times.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
so there you go. So you
It's
got
now
me out of
Park
that one.
Place.
You got me out of that one, Doug. So can you tell us why you're here tonight, Doug?
Sure. So we had done a, before I start, would it be okay if I handed out an 11 by 17 just so
Please do.
everyone can
Follow
follow
along.
along? So what I did is I brought, just so that we can be real clear, I brought the old approved plan as an 11 by 17 and then the new one, so we can look at them side by side if necessary.
Okay.
There you are.
Thank you.
So this is the old plan that you have right there in front of you. And I only, I can give you one.
Keith
No,
can
don't worry about
give,
it.
Keith can give his copy to Lynn for the
Yeah.
record at the end.
Yeah.
if necessary.
So, and then this is the new design, and it will be a little bit like a, I don't know, like a Where's Waldo or something, because there's not much different, but I'd like to just walk the commission through it and why we made a change.
So the second one's a new one, Doug?
Correct.
Okay.
as you're aware, this plan was approved by the Sewer Commission. We had gone back and forth about how to best cross over the sewer main at the entrance. And we came up with a solution involving concrete slabs and spanning over the system, or the existing pipe.
Should we be looking at the back page, Doug?
Not yet. I think I'll start you right at the first page, but,
Okay.
so this plan has been conditionally approved as well at the planning board level, the plan on the left. And so one of the conditions was obviously final state permits, alteration of terrain, DOT, et cetera. And so as part of finalizing our plans with the DOT, a comment came up from them that they determined that they did not want any portion of the rail trail crossing within their right-of-way. This was a little bit frustrating because we had met with town staff. Joanne and Scott both came with us to meet with District 5 prior to our planning board meeting, and we had shown them this plan, and there was no indication that they weren't going to accept the plan as presented. But when they got deeper into it, I guess, or whatever, did their internal review, they determined that they had concerns with that being out in the right-of-way, namely because it's partially their maintenance responsibility, I guess, at that point. There were some truncated dome panels per the requirements of the rail trail that would be technically a little bit in their right-of-way. It also showed a widened entrance because it was technically those two tip downs were all paved, and so it was all one very wide area of pavement, that they didn't love that. So long story short, we have proposed to pull the rail trail out of the right-of-way, which only involved pushing it back about 5 feet from the entrance, so that it was completely out of the right-of-way. Now, we were trying to do this as efficiently as possible because, as you know, any bit of pushing back of the rail trail is required to be at a 2% cross slope. So every foot you push that back, you're going further into the site and you're losing the upward potential of the 10% access, which could reduce separation over your sewer main. So we knew that that would be a concern, and so we tried to work on something that would be a solution for both DOT as well as still being acceptable to the commission. And we think we have it. And so essentially what we did is, in pushing back the entrance, or pushing back the rail trail crossing, we flattened the cross slope a little bit from 2% to 1%, which, you know, still allows for water to drain away.
Explain cross slope so everybody understands. I know what it means, but make
So
sure.
the cross slope is, you know, for handicap accessibility, it's if you're walking this way, it's the slope going across where you're walking, because they don't want you to be, you know, tipping too far in one direction. So they say it's a 2% max cross slope. So we had the 2% cross slope. We've now flattened that out a little bit. The purpose of flattening it out was so that we weren't going any deeper into the site than we had to. Then the big change, and this one, you know, we probably should have thought of it, I guess, before now, but sometimes when you're pushed to get creative, you look at things a little bit differently. What we're now proposing, and you can see this on the second sheet, is
Which page?
sheet 7 of the packets. So that just the very next sheet that is in your packet. It's the grading and drainage plans. What you'll see is that we are now proposing to super elevate the entrance, the driveway entrance into the site, going from right to left. Now, it's actually a good idea for a couple different reasons. One, Mast Road elevates that way as it is already. Because, you know, based on how the spot shots are of Mast Road, it actually makes sense to do that as it is. But what it really helps us with is that when we're crossing your sewer, obviously the most limiting point of the separation would be at the edges of the roadway because it's crowned in the middle. So, and the pipe is running from right to left. So it's slightly higher on the right-hand side than it is on the left. So in the original design, we had a crowned road, and so the tightest point was the right side of the road on the low side of the crown. Well, now we're super elevating it, so that's the highest part of the road because you're effectively dropping, you're eliminating the 2% cross slope and you're raising it 2% across the cross slope of the road. So we have even more separation over the sewer in that location. And then this is where it gets a little bit complicated. I'm going to try to explain it. So if you can picture, the original design had the crowned road, and obviously the concrete slabs that we had going across could not be crowned because they had to be tiered together, and so they were running flat. And so despite having slightly more cover over the pipe at the crown, you weren't getting any additional dirt or separation from the pipe because the concrete was still at the same elevation. Now, because of it being super elevated, the super elevation of the concrete can be set all at the same plane. There's no crowning. So we lost a little bit of overall separation, but we actually gained gravel separation between the bottom of the concrete and the top of the pipe, which was what we were always trying to maximize in the first place in our discussions. So essentially, despite moving the rail trail access back a few feet and losing a few tenths of grade, we actually are gaining additional gravel separation between bottom of concrete and top of pipe because of that super elevation. We're gaining it on the right side, which was the worst, and then we're carrying it across and not having that crown, lack of crown. We're actually taking advantage of the angle and we're gaining that extra separation. So all of that, what I just said, what that equates to is we had originally had 10.96 inches of separation of dirt between the pipe and the bottom of concrete, plus a 7-inch concrete slab, plus the asphalt. Now we have 12.16 inches of gravel, plus the 7 inches, plus the asphalt. So overall, in my opinion, a better design, but it's a different design and still needs, just to make sure everybody's on board with it. So essentially, implementing the super elevation allowed us to run the concrete slabs at one consistent elevation and maximize the separation of the concrete from the pipe. So that's essentially what we created. And we also took advantage of, as you recall, the pipe goes under the road, the driveway, at a slight angle. So you're actually getting more cover on the left-hand side of the pipe because it's higher up the driveway and, climbing higher. So you're actually doing better on the left side. So as I said, the worst side was the right because it was closest to the Mass Road, closest to Mass Road, with the least amount of climb before we got to that point. So by super elevating it, we gained the, almost 6 inches that you would gain from super elevating because you were eliminating the crown and then super elevating that crown. So, obviously a very minor change overall. I mean, all the grades, how everything functions everything is exactly the same. We just incorporated this super elevation into the design to help us with that and also satisfy the DOT comment. So that's why we're here. Just looking for your feedback. I have been coordinating with Mike, who's here, I know. And Mike had brought up some comments. Happy to continue to discuss those again tonight if we'd like. He was questioning what the mindset was of what we were doing in and around the pipe. And so if we go to the final sheet, And that has not really changed effectively. I mean, the separations have changed for the better, but the overall goal is the same, and as long as we're still in agreement on this, then I think we're all set. But what we were doing is, essentially, we knew that the concrete slabs are providing the rigidity to avoid deflection impacts to the pipe. But there's also the fact that these slabs weigh a lot because they're solid concrete and, you know, there's a big mass there. So when we had met last, what we had discussed doing, because we weren't 100% sure what the backfill material was around the pipe, because how it was put in exactly or what have you, you know, there was concern of could that material compress based on the weight of the slabs. So, you know, one solution would be to excavate that material, put in structural material so that that wouldn't be a problem. The issue is that if we dig up the pipe and, you know, try to unearth the area, it's going to be very hard to restructurally stabilize that pipe under the haunches of the pipe with it being in place as is. And we kind of talked about that. So the thought was leave the material around the pipe as it is. Less risk of damaging the pipe, disturbing it, you know, trying to unearth around it, excavating around it. But because we have 10-foot slabs, or 12-foot slabs, I believe, 12-foot slabs, that essentially we can go a couple feet away from the pipe, dig down, and fill with structural material in those on each side of the pipe, so that when we put the concrete slab down, it's essentially bridging on the structural material. So the stuff in the middle might not be great, or maybe it is great, but we don't really care because we have structural material on each side of the pipe that the concrete slabs are being supported on. So that is, and the detail was a little unclear because we talked about it being, I think we used some of the wrong terminology in there. We said like it was sub-base. It's really not. It's the backfill of the pipe. We're keeping the backfill of the pipe. We're putting in, away from the pipe, just some additional compacted subgrade or base to bring up so that the concrete can sit on top of that. So that's the intent. That's still the intent, unless, you know, you guys have different thoughts on that as of now. But we would still be doing all of that. If you're happy with that and continue to be happy with that, we'd still be doing that. And as I said, I mean, we're not losing any separation. If anything, we're gaining soil. So I see it as a positive, but we're still here to make sure you guys are okay with that prior to us saying to DOT that this is acceptable.
We'll go to Mike first. Mike, what's your comments or at this time?
Well, when I reviewed it earlier, and it's partly me, but I just didn't really understand exactly what was going on around the pipe.
Yep.
If that was all being excavated out or being left, and I see that you've changed the wording and
Yep.
the detail.
As needed.
So that's good. Well, let's see, the slabs are 10 feet by 12 feet. So basically you've got the 2 feet in from the edge of each slab. Right, so that leaves you, what, 8 feet? And I'm just trying to get, you know, a sense of how far away from that pipe you're gonna be excavating.
Did you look at sheet 20 of 20, Mike? Are you at sheet 20 of 20?
Yeah,
See the cross-section there? I think that's what he's representing to us right now.
yes,
The 2 columns of fill.
right, yeah,
So essentially, you're gonna have, you know, you have a little bit over a 2-foot pipe. We don't know exactly what it is because it's some funky number. But we have a 12-foot wide section.
Mhm.
We're eating up 4 feet of that, 2 of which is the pipe.
yeah,
So we have essentially 6 feet left in between on each side, which would be 3 and 3. So essentially, give or take, we're gonna be 2 to 3 feet away from the pipe.
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, which I think is fine. And, you know, it maximizes, I think having 2 feet and lifting that, compacting it in 6-inch intervals to a heavy compaction all the way up, that would really be the, you know, a good strong base on each side of the of the existing pipe to support the weight of this, and then obviously the concrete slab itself will eliminate any deflection that's imposed on the actual pipe. You know, that deflection will get pushed to the structural material on the edges and, you know, down into the ground from there.
Anything else, Mike?
Um,
You still can reserve the right to speak. We're just gonna, just wanted to give you your comments first.
I guess I'm curious as to how you plan to prevent that existing material around the pipe from becoming undermined to put in these support columns.
Well, I guess our thought was, I mean, I guess it's to our benefit, the pipe isn't very deep. So we're not digging a huge trench,
Right.
you know, we're gonna be effectively probably like 3.5 feet deep. You know, if there is any sloughing of the, you know, that side wall, I think the thought would be that we'd be backfilling with this material and compacting anywhere that moved. I mean, I don't think it's gonna slough 3 feet in with only being 3 feet deep, so I think we're gonna have, you know, we have some safety factor there, being that we're 3 feet away from the pipe, give or take. No, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I think if this were 6 feet deep, then that would be a lot more difficult to do. But I think being that, you know, use a 2 foot wide bucket, you're gonna dig one trench down, you're gonna get that clean, you know, effectively vertical sides will be the goal. You're gonna backfill that, you're gonna run a vibratory roller in there, or, you know, a vibratory compactor, and, you know, and then just fill those both areas up with that structural material, right up to that point. And then, you know, so if there is any cave in and it goes from 2 feet wide to 2.5 feet wide, as long as that's compacted, I think you're still meeting that same goal, because really what we want is somewhere between 2 and 2.5 feet of compacted gravel base on each side of this thing that it's supported on. Because obviously it's gonna be universally supported by all the material. I mean, the surface area is still gonna have some level of support. It's just the two areas that are on the ends that where deflection would be getting pushed to would be the most stable piece.
Because the driveway is the only access into the site, I envision that you're going to have excavators on both sides of the pipe as you dig the area for the clean fill.
Yeah, I mean, most likely, I mean, that's still something that we can finalize and coordinate with staff or whatever as far as how we're doing that, because we know that there needs to be protection for the pipe.
Mr. Chair, I see that Doug has further mitigated the risk of the pipe.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yeah, I don't have much comment on the redesign. It looks like we gained 1/10 of a foot for the minimum coverage from the past. And we lost, in the crown, we lost about 1/2 a foot, but I agree with I like the fill, structural fill on both sides, yeah. One thing I did have was just the slab connection detail.
Mm-hmm.
The bolt pockets should be filled with like a non-shrink grout or whatever.
We can do that. I mean, I think my only thought was that if we do that, that makes maintenance a little bit more difficult if you were, because I mean, these things, they have these on bridge, like they actually piece together box culverts and stuff like this, where they, you know, those can be exposed. I mean, they're stainless hardware. It shouldn't be like something that's getting, you know, corroded and destroyed or anything. And effectively what it would allow for is for, you know, if there were to be some need to pull a particular panel. I mean, but if the commission wants them grouted, I'm not opposed to that. I think
Either that or a corrosion resistant
sure.
material, because I'm familiar with box culverts, and most are, we would, I used to work for
grout
a
'em?
precaster, we would grout them.
You would, okay.
All right, so Doug, I'm looking at your cross-section on 20 of 20, the actual road cross-section, which is between the two little diagrams you have. You're showing your finished elevations on the road at the same elevation, so are you gonna level the road even though you're gonna change the cross-section
No.
on the? So why does it show the same elevations from right to left?
That's a
on
good
it?
question. So the reason being is that, and this, I'd love to take credit for this, but it just worked out this way. That essentially, the angle of the pipe, of how it crosses under the road, is going from a low side of the road to a high side of the road. And so the super elevation of the road, it's super elevating from left to right. But in the actual section of how it crosses the pipe, it's running dead flat across that pipe because it's actually going uphill as the grade goes.
Right.
So, I mean, and what you can see to visualize what I'm talking about, if you go to the grading plan.
I just envisioned. it.
Yeah,
Thank
it's the spot or the contour, excuse me. The contour of the super elevated road runs right on top of the pipe. You can see right consistently across it. So that's why across that section it appears flat, because it is flat across the grade in the eyes of how the pipe is running, because the pipe is not running perpendicular to the road.
Okay, I got you.
What,
I thought that was a mistake at first too. When I saw the numbers, I'm like, that doesn't.
Because I'm looking at the
something's not
numbers
right.
underneath it, and all the numbers underneath are graduated numbers.
Right.
Whereas the ones on the surface of the road are all the same number. I was wondering how we got from graduated numbers to to the same number at the top.
Yeah, and that's essentially what it is that you are losing some, the pipe is still sloping. In its own plane, the pipe is sloping down at a very slight pitch. But the road being super elevated and the orientation of the
Ready,
pipe
we need to
allows
make
it to be
some-
flat.
Can I finish my
I-
questions before you start making motions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you
thought
very
were
much.
finished.
Appreciate that. So, a couple things, Doug, I'd like to go over with you.
Sure.
First of all, in regarding your fill areas with the 3.04 fill, those areas, as you notice, you have a Proctor notice on your Proctor test. I would like compaction on 12-inch intervals on both of those runs, and compaction testing every 12 inches.
Okay.
So, and that has to be a note on your plan, that cannot not appear on your plan. So whenever you get your Proctor for your product, then I would want compaction, trench compaction for those runs at each lift.
To
Not
be
the whole-
submitted to the.
Well, Corey's gonna be out there supervising, we're gonna have a full-time inspector on that. When that day comes,
I'm
we'll have
sure-
full-time
Sure
inspection.
you should.
And we'll be able to document that you've made arrangements for soil compaction testing, and we will get, and they do if they have the Proctor, they tell you right there on the spot, you're 96, 95, 98, they'll
Yeah.
tell you what you are,
Yep.
which is good. So that is number one I want to note, that I want to see a note on your plan.
I mean,
Um,
we do say on that, it says compaction, it says 6-inch lift, compacted 6-inch lifts to no less than 95% compaction by modified Proctor
Well,
test.
I would be satisfied with 12-inch lifts, but 6 inches better. I'd be happy to.
I figured they're gonna have the machine there.
Well, that's fine, 6-inch lifts are good, because most contractors have a hard time putting in exactly 6 inches because of, you're working with excavators and hand shovels and stuff, so you could call it 6, but if it ran a little over, Corey, we'd be satisfied with, 6 to 10 or something like that, I'm sure. That's more than meets the standard for the industry. That's really, okay. Number two, Doug, we're talking about the material that's actually around the pipe and the disturbance, possible disturbance. So another note I want to see on your print is that any disturbance of the material above the pipe need to be replaced with approved materials. So if it's going to be a wash sand or whatever we get out there, we find, whatever that pipe is bedded in, I want like materials put in and compacted as well. When they're prepping it, or if the sides slough off and they start building their trench out of the 3044, and you got to infill a little bit on the pipe side, all that has to be matching and compacted all at once, so you know that. But it needs to be stated on the design, so we know. Doug, also, we want the department to be copied when you receive your DOT driveway permit prior to any construction activities beginning. We do know that you stated this is not going to happen till late in the project. You're going to traverse the mound in the construction phases. Am I correct in that, or has that changed?
No, that's still correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd want to be copied on the DOT driveway permit for our records that they approved the grade changes and the trail relocation and all elements, so we have our ducks in order. So then, when we talk about the first thing you're going to do is to access the site, we would like to know what is your temporary access prevention going to be? I had spoken with people about this, and there's a lot of different methodologies, but when Ed chooses his excavating contractor to go out there, we would like to have a subsequent meeting with his contractor here, and he can either have you come up with him, or he can assure us of how the temporary measures are going to be and what they are going to be prior to anything driving over that rail trail pad there.
Sure.
Okay. And then, I guess, the temporary access would also give us some information about how the rail trail will remain open during your construction phase, how you're going to taper the sides off, or whatever you plan to do to make sure that that area remains accessible during. You can do that all in one if you want, so that we have the information for that as well.
Okay.
All right. Mike, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we
Yes,
discuss anything else? Please?
yes. Based on the minimum distance of 1.93 feet from the top of the pipe to the top of the pavement, that gives you a foot, basically about exactly a foot of cover over the pipe. So I ran calculations of for deflection for H20 loading with 1 foot of cover over the pipe, and a couple different ways, and came up with deflections between 2% and 2.8%.
Even with a concrete slab?
No. that's
Without a
the
concrete slab?
Yeah, that's just soil, so,
Just the soil itself?
yeah.
So how is that germane to the conversation? I'm trying to figure that out.
Because when you put the concrete slab over it, it's going to distribute that load.
Okay,
See, when I did this calculation, I used an H20 loading, which is, it's a 32,000 pound wheel load or point load. So that's what I based the deflection on.
okay.
But that's with just a foot of soil, so that's not including the slab.
So in your opinion, this is all going to work?
It should.
At this time,
Mhm.
you're allowed to reserve your opinion to a later date if you choose to.
Yeah, it looks like it will.
Okay. Dan, you have anything else you'd like to add? Dave, would you like to add
I
anything?
appreciate your comments were good.
Thank you. All right. Corey, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think it looks good, I like it.
So commissioners, what do we want to use for, so we can inform the applicant now, what are we using for inspection? Are we going to have Corey sort of keep an eye on things, but Mike will have to at least make a cursory visit to, from an engineering standpoint, we'd like to see Mike out there when it's actually time to put slabs down? I think that would probably be a good idea, because Mike is our consulting engineer. All right.
Doug, this will be the most precisely built road in town to 1/100 of an inch, 100th of a foot, I mean.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, that's why having another inch or two added by the super elevation doesn't hurt. You know?
And the super elevation, Doug, of the roadway itself is from the sidewalk to the Cape Cod berm. Is that the way the road is super elevated as you drive up?
Other way.
It's going to the sidewalk, so it'll run against the granite curbing.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you're gonna have to present this to DOT now and see if they're gonna be,
Well, I mean, yeah, short answer is yes, but I mean, we had presented all this, and they came back with the comment of saying that they didn't want to see that in the right of way. So our expectation is that with this new plan, that would be acceptable to
Acceptable.
them, so. But we didn't want to present it to them and then have you guys not be comfortable with it, and then, and then have to start over with them again. So we thought this was step one, and then we'll now submit this with your blessing back to them.
Got it. Anybody else have anything for this applicant tonight? David,
Yes, sir.
do you want to make a motion, David? I thought you were getting ready to do that earlier.
Yes, a motion that the engineering conditions for a driveway over our sewer main described in the Park Place plans, that we find it acceptable.
And state the date, the revision date is 1/4/24?
Yes,
So the revision
Right.
date, 1/24.
with that revision date.
And conditions as noted that we just asked them to put on their
Yes.
future plan?
Include the conditions made by the board.
Any?
I'll second that motion.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passed. Thank you for coming in.
Okay, thank you.
And remember that before anybody decides to start a chainsaw up there, we need to see the temporary crossing, and we will be keeping an eye on things and making sure that happens prior to the temporary construction.
Yep, not a problem. I mean, I knew that you wanted that as a follow-up even before this meeting,
Well, it's
but,
not the first time I've said it.
right,
Okay.
so no problem.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, our second new business item tonight is St. Anselm College. We know why they're here, so we'll ask them to come up and identify themselves for the record, and we'll begin our discussion.
Good evening, thanks for having us. I'm Ari Pollack, I'm an attorney with the Gallagher firm in Concord, New Hampshire. Behind me is Bill Furlong, the Vice President of Finance and the CFO of St. Anselm College. And with him, seated with him, is Jonathan Woodcock, who's the Director of the college's physical plant. To my left is Tom Burns. He is an engineer and licensed septic designer with the T.F. Moran engineering firm.
Wow, big crowd. Go ahead.
Thank you. As the commission knows, we're here to discuss sewer flows and fees for the college's facilities that are located in the town of Goffstown. And specifically, we hope to discuss how we can collectively, meaning the college and the town and this commission, move forward from an agreement that was effective in the 1990s, but certainly has expired since then, and even despite its expiration, was given effect each year until recently. I can't explain why that was the case, and I don't know that others can either. We also received a proposed agreement from Commissioner Pierce. We thank him for that. And we understand that that was offered as a form of replacement for the prior expired agreement, and we'd like to discuss that this evening. Before I do that, and as more of just a threshold matter, at least we think it's important to express that the college works hard to be a good and respectful institutional neighbor, community member, contributor in all of its dealings with the town, and there are many. And the college, of course, has a large footprint in Goffstown, a large student body, a large staff and faculty body. It's a large employer, and as I said, interacts on many levels. It's also an institution that uses typical budgeting tools, has limited resources and all the usual financial pressures that any other business or educational institution would face. And so with all of that in mind, we certainly appreciate the spirit in which the proposed agreement was sent along, maybe to start a conversation, and we accepted it, obviously in the spirit it was offered. And I guess to be clear, we should say that we understand that it's the purview of the commission to set municipal rates for sewage flow, and we have no issue with community-wide increases from $400 per unit, which I think was the case last year, to $450 per unit for this year. I was going to say the coming year, but it's here. Unfortunately, it's the number of treatment units that are proposed in that agreement that require some more conversation. It's not so much a design or an engineering problem or review or plan set review similar to what you had in the prior matter. It's more of a financial or ratepayer issue for us to come to some agreement on. And we understand that the proposed agreement used the DES table 1008-1. It's entitled Unit Design Flow Figures. I'm sure this commission's well aware of and familiar with the table, and that it can be used to generate an estimate of daily flow volume, and that's exactly what's reflected in the proposed agreement. And we also appreciate that the commission, or at least as far as the draft is concerned, would defer to the college to share enrollment data and help us narrow in on how many people are in what places. The estimate, however, as you all know, significantly and multiples significantly higher than the actual measured flow experience of these facilities, the buildings that are out there today and the pipe that's out there today and the waste that's in that pipe today. And so if you use those figures and you push the flat rate, we end up going from $110,000 a year, which was the agreed upon amount for a long time, long after the agreement expired. And again, I'm not an expert on why that happened. But in the first instance, the invoicing or intention was $170,000+ a year, and the latest numbers with the increase in rates would be $190,000+ a year. And it's against, actual flows that are difficult to justify the $110,000 a year that's historically been paid. And so, I guess that this all boils down to the increase is not tied to the raw data or the experience that the college has had, or that the waste flow that the town has received and passed along to the plant. And it amounts to a significant 50+% increase in fees year over year. We realize that the commission would like to apply the design flows in the DES chart. We understand that DES is an expert in these matters, that those flows are based on latest science, and that they amend those rules from time to time. And at least I'm familiar with how that rulemaking process is conducted and vetted. But even DES would accept experiential data for an existing use. It's right in their rules. It's actually in the same area of the rules, the same part 1008 of that chapter. Also, based on the historic correspondence between the college and the town and what was the precursor to that 1990 agreement, it seems that there was a negotiation that occurred at that time, and that was how 300 treatment units, or equivalent units was the language used then. I think it ultimately was 275 that was applied, but there was a larger number discussed, there was a lower number discussed, and not surprisingly, something in the middle was selected. We've also, got recent correspondence from the commission that at least talks about coming in and having a conversation if we don't think strict adherence to the rules for calculation are workable in our case, and frankly, I think that's why we're all here. And I guess most importantly, the average daily volume for the last, I guess probably the town's fiscal year, middle of 22 to middle of 23, was measured at just under 71,000 gallons per day. It's an average, of course, but whereas the design flows that are reflected by the chart and then put into the proposal they're talking about a metric that's well over 190,000 gallons per day, which, in our view, based on, we have the benefit of this experiential data, and it's projecting a huge overestimation of what's actually going down the pipe. And so, we're in the uncomfortable position of we absolutely respect the commission, its jurisdiction, but we would very much like to have a conversation about how we can land on a right-sized metric. I'm not exactly sure how we do that. I have some suggestions if and when you want to hear them. But what we're looking for is some kind of conversation about how the college's status as a, I think, respected institution in town can land on a new number to replace an old agreement that worked for a long time but admittedly expired. So that's a lot of words, and I'll stop there. And we do have Tom and members of the college here to answer any more specific questions than I might be able to address. And I thank you for listening.
Tom, are you going to provide us any information, or are you just here to answer questions?
I'm happy to answer questions. If you
Oh,
want me to go
you're
through.
welcome to, sure.
So, kind of just piggybacking on what Ari mentioned, we had an opportunity to look at, we have the flow data from the last year. The college was able to provide some data from prior years as well for total water consumption, going back over the last 20 years or so with some different years. And to Ari's point, we've seen a reduction from those prior years to now, a sizable reduction, about 25% drop over the last 20 years in average daily flows, and that's taken from daily meter readings that were provided, water usage meter readings, which is part of what we do when we're evaluating existing uses for sewer and septic, and we're getting metered numbers. We looked at daily rates, we looked at annual rates, monthly rates as well. There's been about a 25% reduction, and to Ari's point, the number that we had for last year, the average, was a little under 71,000 gallons. The design flow calculation is up around 190,000 gallons if you go strictly by the design rigs. But as 10008 points out, one of the things we look at is for existing uses, is that's why we look at metered readings. That's why it's an accepted practice to gather metered readings over periods of time, to supply those, particularly as they note for seasonal uses, which the college campus has, their student body is typically on the campus about 30 weeks of the year. So it kind of falls in line, which is why you can see the numbers tend to be lower than design, because it's not based on a full 365, because they're, but even looking at that, still looking at peaks, daily peaks and everything, we're still well below what the design flow would be, I think. So, just kind of following what Ari is saying, I think part of the discussion is just that with a user like this, understanding that the commission uses design flow as the means for calculating. Part of the reason that that's done is because it's used to assess TUs at the time when a sewer connection permit is issued, when you have, that data is not available. But where we have historical data and we're trying to establish a number now, I think it's worth the discussion of using, looking at, can we use metered flow? And I think that's part of what, we're here to discuss is would the commission accept metered flow rates as a means to help calculate this TU for the campus, or to come to an agreement on a number that we can use for the campus's use.
Okay. Anybody, commissioners?
All right. I appreciate Ari's excellent summary of everything that's transpired over the last 6 months to this evening's presentation. Thank you. And of course, Tom, the most critical word you mentioned is design flow, or design metered flow of water. And of course, as you know, no other customer for the sewer department do we use water flow as a gauge. That's why we totally rely on the NH rules.
But keeping in mind that regulation, what that's in 10008, where they talk about meter readings, they're referring to water meter readings.
Well, we don't have all customers in our town on water meters. That's number one. We have a lot of residential customers that have wells, and they still have sewer connections. So we cannot use water data to charge you one price, and we can't use a table to charge Ari another price, because it's not fair across the board. So we do not use water data at all as part of our sewer use ordinance and how we design, how we charge for this. So we are not going to accept water data as a means to justify a rate, although we will talk to you about it, but we're never going to consider your bill based on your water usage. So that's right out the gate.
Yep, so,
Excuse me for a second.
yeah.
Let some speak.
yeah, go
Just
on up.
that data, I
Just
think
use
that
the
we have,
microphone here, Bill.
Yeah, come on up and grab a chair.
Yeah, slide in between.
Yep.
I think the data that we have here that Tom is referencing is actually data that was provided to us directly from the sewer
So these are the sewer?
department, yes.
So this
So-
is based off of the flow meter?
Correct,
The
yes.
flow meter
Yeah.
out for.
So it's
your
not,
sewer.
it's not based
So
on.
my apologies, these are actual metered flows of the campus's sewage then?
Right. There is a meter at your outfall at the exit of your property.
Okay.
Yes, and I apologize, that's,
Okay.
that's the number.
We knew about that.
We knew about, yeah, I thought you were talking about water.
He was,
meters.
but now
Well,
he's, now
I'm-
he
I'm-
said he
I
stands
misspoke,
corrected.
yes.
Okay. So, we have a problem, and it's just basic problem, is how do we treat you fairly, as Attorney Pollack is asking us to, but what do we do with our other customers here in town?
Well, I guess the goal should always be fairness. I don't know that there's a portion of your regs, and I did go through them. I haven't put them in a nice little binding. But I didn't see anything there that speaks to exclusion of metered flow data. I understand it's the practice of the commission to use the chart. I understand why that makes a lot of sense, why it's a uniform practice that can be applied to everybody. But even DES, the creator of the chart, will accept and consider metered flow. And so it's hard for us as someone who has that ability to make the comparison. And I certainly appreciate that not everybody's got a meter, not everybody's got the data, not everyone can know specifically that what went in came out or what went in. But in this instance, we have that data, and to blindly accept a number that is just so much higher than what our experiential data shows it's just not something that the institution can take. And again, they're a creature of budgets. They're a creature of expectation of income and expense, and to have something that's just out of the realm of what was anticipated and doesn't tie to the actual experience is difficult to justify. I'm sure you can appreciate the distinction between what's being used versus what's being charged, and what was charged versus what's proposed to be charged.
You are probably the only customer in our entire circuit that has a flow meter, right, Corey? We have any other customers with a flow meter for the exit? Okay. My whole concern is setting a precedent. And you know, you're an attorney, you know about precedents. Because once I discuss giving a break, if you will call it, to the college based on some data that you can provide us with, what happens when 10 other customers come in or 100 other customers come in and they start saying, well, you know, we'd like to have a meter installed on our line? Well, we can't do all that. We can't do that. We don't do that. So
It's a fair point.
It's precedent that I'm concerned about.
It's a fair point. I understand the point. Precedent should always be a concern for a jurisdictional body that has to make case-specific decisions. What's interesting about precedent, though, is it's based on the circumstances of each particular matter. And I don't think, you've already said it, that the college is the one that has the meter. I don't know that they necessarily should be the only one or could be the only one, but they're the one that's got it now, number one. It would be difficult to ignore similar data for other customers and say, no, we're going to willfully charge you more than you use or pump. I think that would really bring a lot of unwanted criticism for the commission. And in this instance, I think the college is unique. It's got a unique circumstance where they are a large user of the system, and they're willing to pay their share. But they're a large payer of fees, and they paid connection fees, and they will pay connection fees whenever that comes up in terms of capital contribution. They're paying the freight all over their operation, but to justify something more when they have the data that shows that actually something less is appropriate, I don't know that that sets precedent as much as it does justice.
Dave or Daniel?
Attorney Pollack, your points are significant, you know, for your situation. Yes, what we call coming out of a customer's property is a lateral going to sewer main. And, you know, as things has developed for your campus, there's one lateral coming out of the campus, and because it happened to be near that boundary line going into Manchester, it is metered. So you have a very unique situation where historically you may be benefiting because you're the only customer that has a lateral that has a flow meter on it. Now, whether that flow meter is accurate is debatable, but as we've seen in the past, a slight blockage will cause it to hiccup badly.
Right. So there's a lot of details to consider, and one of the things that's quite apparent to me is it's going to be difficult in this setting to try and zero in on what the right number might be. And if it pleases the chairman, my suggestion would be that we have some subgroup or some commissioner or commissioners that could be assigned to meet with our group and come forward with a recommendation. The commission is not providing any delegation, it comes back.
I think it should be decided in this room, not with any subcommittees.
Okay, your prerogative,
We'll all
certainly.
do it face to face right here at the table. We'll figure it out. Dan, you have anything you want to add?
What was the peak? What are your peak? You had peak data for like, because you have big events occasionally. What's your peak outflow?
So going back over the historic data I had, the highest single day was 148,200 gallons per day.
When was that?
That was back in 2004.
Yeah, that's 20 years ago.
Right. And so again,
It was prior to the work that we did on campus, placing all of our sewer connections on campus because it was infiltration from the groundwater.
We did the same thing.
Yeah.
I think we did it in conjunction.
So, Daniel, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
You can go ahead.
So, if we agree to discuss the meter pit itself as your discharge from the site, is that what you're looking for at this time?
Well, again, I'm just trying to figure out how we can do this right here, right now, but, and I'm not disagreeing, I'm just trying to figure that out.
It doesn't have to be done right here, right now. We're having a discussion.
Okay,
tonight.
I think.
Conclusions could come at a subsequent meeting as far as we're
Understood,
concerned.
understood. I think what we're saying is, yes, we would like our charges to be based upon the actual flow data indicated by the meter, and if there's the need for a true-up because it turns out that the trend was bucked because we had a peak event, we'd owe more in some subsequent bill, or we'd go back to normal in a right-sized bill, and it would just be based upon what we're actually putting down the pipe.
Well, the bills don't go monthly just for openers. They go every 6 months.
Understood.
And it's always billed in arrears.
Yep.
So we have data available to us 6 months before the bill goes out. So we're
Okay.
not looking at anything like the day of the bill being submitted. Okay?
So if it's billed in arrears, we would accept the bill. We would understand it was based on what we did, and we paid.
Corey, how do we get the data from that meter pit?
It's transmitted to a chart and gives you gallonage
To you or to Manchester Wastewater?
to me and Manchester Wastewater.
So
We
it's-
both have it.
It's quoted in a monthly
And
statement.
it's, yeah, we get a monthly bill from the Manchester Wastewater with the actual gallonage for each month on it,
From that meter.
from that metering pit, yeah.
And we pay our, Lynn, when do we pay our charges? Monthly?
Yes, but they're usually a month or two
Month and a
behind.
half,
And
probably.
also when our bills aren't completely in arrears because they go out in November through December 31st.
I understand, but that's
Right,
just, that was
so
just,
so that you're aware of that.
But I believe there is room for discussion on that point, Mr. Pollack. I took 19 months of that meter observations, and using the numbers that are quoted by Manchester on their monthly invoice. And over 19 months, it added up to a little bit less than 35,000, well, it's called 100 cubic feet. See, you multiply by 100 to get cubic feet, multiply by 7 point something to get gallons. But, you know, that's a number that essentially a third party to us two derived. So it's something that perhaps we both could rely upon as a third party.
You lost me with the math, but I understand your point, which
So
is that
They-
Manchester
they,
is also
yes,
tracking.
Yeah.
so let me ask the commissioners right now, and you gentlemen are here in the crowd. Would it be appropriate for you to make some submissions to the commission based on what you think is in line with what the bill should be?
I think we would be happy to do that, but it sounds like there's data available to at least the Manchester and perhaps the commission that would very much be helpful to us in that exercise. So
The
if we could
data's
get
right
that.
there on the
This
table,
data?
right in front of you.
Yeah.
This is-
I'll simplify all those numbers for you, Mr. Pollack.
In there, these are a little bit dated.
Those are
So,
old,
yeah.
yeah. those
Yes.
are-
So
It
we'd like
was,
to get new data. if we
just
could.
shy of 26 million gallons a year.
26 million gallons over
Per
19
year.
months or per year?
No, excuse, that was a year. I hope I'm not
Anyway,
stand
I think,
corrected.
Mr. Chairman, the short answer is if we
Yeah.
had what you've got, we
Yeah.
could make a proposal.
Well, you have, didn't you submit that to him with the numbers?
No, it was just about, no, I never submitted to Mr. Pollack what would be the Manchester's accumulation
I don't
of
believe
metered
I've seen
flow.
it, but we certainly could receive it and
Yes,
review it.
that can be within, you know, an hour of sitting in Lynn's office, I can look at the old bills and.
Well, Lynn,
tally
that's
them.
Lynn's job, she can handle
Yeah,
that.
I know.
That'd be great. We'd be happy to do that, and obviously, that's one of the reasons we brought Tom into the conversation.
Yeah,
But-
so that, again, that works out to equivalent, so just doing the math real quick, that's about 71,000 gallons per day.
And
Taken over the
Corey,
course of a
you-
year.
the data that you supplied us with, the last list of numbers, remember you said there was a clerical error on Manchester's part? And they
Yeah.
charged them like 10 times the number? Or
Well,
whatever
yeah,
that
the-
crazy number was?
And when I took my 19 months of observations, I excluded this 1 month.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to ask Corey, the data that you provided us with, was that the most current for the last year?
Yes,
Okay, and do they have that? Is that what he's got right there in front of him?
I don't know.
No, this
So-
is
No,
old.
this is older, this is older information that the school had.
Well, we're going out on a limb with you guys doing this because we're putting ourselves in a spot where we're gonna be questioned by other ratepayers as to why we're doing something for you and not doing something for them in my book. And we have to be very careful about what we do. I don't think that, our data is flawed based using treatment units because by your own website, we have your student population and faculty population. And that's where the data was gleaned from to decide the treatment unit discussion. I do understand that there are times when your campus is not fully occupied, which could be a huge discussion item that we could have with you. When your student population is not there, those treatment units are not actually accurate for the billing purposes. So I think we could have a discussion with you based on your student population and faculty population, as well as the times that you're actually in school, when the campus is fully occupied and functioning, and consider what kind of reduction would be available in the event that for 3 months a year, the place is basically occupied by the custodial staff and your maintenance folks that work there. And that certainly would be a point that would be well received for discussion purposes.
Those are certainly sensible justifications, and we could gather this data and come back to you with a
I think that would be a good idea to start the ball rolling in a discussion matter with you folks to try to come to some agreeable solution.
We would welcome it, and we certainly would welcome the spirit of the conversation. We're trying to find something workable for everybody.
Is there anything else you would like to, anything else you'd like to bring forward before I let Commissioner Pierce have the floor?
Not at this time.
Dave?
When I drafted a potential agreement that documented everything has occurred with all our various letters back and forth since last summer, I started with the premise that the college, let me back up one step. You're the only customer who potential level of sewer flow may vary, every 4, 5, 6 years. If I was looking at a single-family home, I know how many bedrooms they have, and therefore their flows based on bedrooms, it's never going to change. It's always 3, 4 bedrooms. But in your case, the campus grows, hopefully, it does. Your staff may change, and so if I were to come back every 4 or 5 years, the input values of, if I was using the state table, the input values of employees, students that live in dorms, could vary.
It would matter when you came back. I'd like you to come up today.
And so there's, the concept was that in setting a treatment unit based on those input values of employees and students, that input value would be documented by a letter from the college. Is that a reasonable ask for you?
I mean, from our perspective, the best way to figure out what we're putting in the pipe is to figure out what we're putting in the pipe. Not how many people are in the building, not when they're there, not when they go home for break or summer, or what summer program is offered and the dorms are in use. It's just easier to figure out what went down the pipe and what is the town getting charged by Manchester to process. And so
We don't do it by that formula either.
Okay.
Only because as a stakeholder in that wastewater plant, we have to set money aside for their improvements. We're a 4% stakeholder in that plant. They do multi-million-dollar upgrades every couple of years, which we are responsible to pay our fair share for. So sewer rates do not reflect exact in and out costs for us. Sewer rates also in fact are charged for our own infrastructure repairs and products. We do between $400,000 and $600,000 a year in pipe replacement in our town here. We do slip lining to reduce water. We do pump station upgrades. We have how many pump stations, Corey?
4.
4 pump stations in our town. It's all part of the big picture. So if Manchester is charging us X to process the water that comes from the college, we're not charging you X. We're charging you X plus whatever we deem necessary to maintain the sewer fund and maintain the infrastructure within our town. So
Yes.
that's a point that needs to be stated.
And I appreciate that explanation, and as I started with, we don't have any challenge to the rate that has been established by the commission. We understand that there are many factors that go into that and that you folks are the experts.
That's fine. Very good.
I guess I only have one last question, which is when we do all of this homework and want to turn it in, can we send it to Lynn and she'll put us on an agenda?
Here's how it goes from now on. Everything that you have to say goes through the sewer secretary.
Understood?
No more consulting with us guys, because we don't speak for all of us. We speak for ourselves, and one does not speak for the commission. So any submissions that you'd like to make, I'd appreciate if you could send them through the sewer department secretary. She will distribute to the commissioners, and the commissioners will be able to just see what's going on.
I mean, just continue with the thoughts I had. So for all the other 2,000 customers, their situations are very stable. And there's no agreements for every individual home as to what
table.
The table is, we simply use one standard for all the customers. I'm trying to understand, in your situation, the input values may change after a number of years as the college expands and changes. And so from that viewpoint alone, it would be, from my view, it would be appropriate to have an agreement between customer and provider. So do you agree that all of our discussion should end in some sort of a written agreement?
I think that should be the goal, and I think we can get there.
Okay, thank you.
And a written agreement, if that comes to fruition, is an annual charge. We're not going to do another 10-year deal unless this commission decides to do
Or
another
perhaps
10-year
it could
deal.
be negotiated something between 1 and 10, but some other number.
We don't make deals with any other person, customer, business, anything in the town of Goffstown.
Understood.
Your 10-year deal was decided by a group of commissioners in 1999, 1990, and whatever transpired at that discussion, none of us are privy to that discussion. Unless you were working here in 1990 and
I
you
have
sat in on
I have all the files, so, and
No.
I've reviewed
But did
them.
you sit in on the discussion?
I can bring some of that did. He's now the abbot of the
Maybe
college.
we should leave, maybe we should let that dog speak.
I think we're working on current events.
I think we're on current events, but be aware that multiple year deals may or may not be in the future for the college. They may be just like every other sewer customer, when we establish common ground that we can agree on, then it becomes an annual bill. And when the sewer department raises rates 5% next year or 8% the following year, and then reduces them, because we do have a fiscal plan for our funds, and our fiscal plan involves some rate increases over the next few years. We haven't raised rates. I can't remember when we raised rates the last time. And our funds are being diminished, so when fiscal calculations were done, we need to do something, and we're doing it now. Unfortunately, this ties into this conversation because we're talking to you about this right now. So it's kind of a double whammy for you
Yep.
guys.
But that's okay. The rates are understood. We'll take all this under consideration and come back with a proposal, and
Can we,
hopefully you'll like it.
could we expect something from you in the next 2 weeks so that we'd have time to review it prior to our next meeting and invite you to our next meeting?
We
2
can make
weeks.
that our goal.
Yeah, we can
I
make
don't know that we can promise, but I don't know what we're gonna get. But that sounds like something doable.
Yeah, we're going to be a little busy here in the next couple
You meet
weeks.
monthly, yes?
We have a
We meet
debate
monthly.
maybe coming, so.
I mean, it's been
Yeah, it is
It's been
the,
like 19 years, another 2 months isn't gonna matter.
it's the first in the nation primary that happens
that's
every
right.
4
Yeah,
years,
So
and
that's what I was just referencing.
my friend here is
yeah.
front and center.
So,
Do you think you could possibly get the news organizations to say that St. Anselm's College is in Goffstown, New Hampshire? Instead of every time it comes up on the screen, it's Manchester.
We'll work on that
Because your
too.
zip code.
We're definitely gonna need more than 2 weeks for that.
Yes,
I'll put that in the minutes.
Not the first time I've said it.
that's a more complicated agreement.
I would think.
All right, so we thank you for your time, gentlemen, and we would look forward to hearing from you. If you need any information, you contact the secretary. She will contact Corey, and Corey will supply you with necessary information.
Excellent.
They're both sewer employees. They have direct, you can contact Lynn primarily, so there's a record of the contact, and then she will distribute the next person to be contacted and respond to you guys.
That all sounds great, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in.
You're
Thank
Bill,
you.
right?
I'm Bill,
Okay,
yes.
I'll make sure I have the right person here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got that. I just wasn't sure who came up.
You got all the names before they leave?
Yes, Bill Furlong, Tom Burns, Jonathan Woodcock, and Ari Pollock.
Taking notes?
We've got his picture right here, so you can put his picture in the file. Right here, it's right there.
Oh, thank goodness. I have Ari's picture I'll bring home with me.
Gentlemen, we got
Wait, whose picture?
your picture, right here.
Make sure
We
you,
want-
make sure you
We
tell my
wanted
mother
to
I
know
had
we
a
were
tie
speaking
on.
to the right Mr. Foley.
It's got your header on it, so it's your photo.
He always asks me, did you wear a tie to that meeting? Yes, I did.
Gentlemen, we have a little more business to discuss. We also have to be out of here in time for the planning meeting, so if you'd like to have
Thank you.
a
Have a
subsequent
good night.
meeting, have it in the, between the doors where we can't hear
Get
you.
out of your way, thank you.
Okay, we're pretty good on time. We gotta be out of here for the
I
plan
have
board in a
one
little
letter
bit.
too that you wanted me to.
All right, Albert Street update. I have asked Lynn to schedule a meeting with the Albert Street residents for our next monthly meeting, if we can invite them to our next monthly meeting. Does anyone have a problem with that?
Nope.
Nope, 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 okay, good. So Lynn, would you do that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, let's, no, this
This is
is,
for next, after.
This is the draft letter.
I know it is. Do you have anything on Albert Street for us, Mike? If you don't, that's
No,
fine.
real estate.
We signed our contract? Yes?
We signed the award. I'm getting the rest of the documents to send.
Has the contractor agreed to start work in April as
Yes.
requested? And then, beyond Albert Street, Corey, what's the next road after Albert Street? The one in between the two?
Yes, you have, it's a section of Plummer and I just don't.
Whatever. Are you working
Yeah.
with Mike to try to get a head start on this?
Yes, Mike and Eric Gustafson with all the information.
Good, thank you. Any commissioners have any questions about Albert Street at this time? East Union and Riverview Park update, Mike?
Well, the new roof is on. There's still some final, like, flashing details and stuff that need to be completed. They're working mostly on the structural repairs right now.
They take the wall down yet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and did they get it framed back in, so you're not blowing heat out? All right. What's the story with the, something with the exhaust, the generator and the exhaust, or something going through the roof, or what was that about?
Oh, it's the radiator for the generator is on the roof,
Yep,
and obviously the coolant from the motor has to go through
piping,
piping, and where it goes to the roof needs to, they actually have to take that piping out and redo it, so it's not sealed great right there yet, so it leaks.
could we go through the sidewall and access the roof by going through the sidewall, not piercing the roof?
It's already through the roof.
Oh.
You might as well just put it back and
Okay.
seal it.
But it's something that if we decided to change that that radiator out for any reason and move it, we could reseal the holes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, so Mike, I'm sorry, what else about East Union, anything?
We did get payment application, or payment requisition number 1.
And what percentage of the work have they completed?
The application is for 30%. They're actually beyond now.
Okay. Well, if you want to submit that to us this evening, it needs to be signed, the commissioners can look at it and vote on it and just then.
They all have it.
Okay.
And Riverview Park update? Oh, did you have other stuff on East Union, or was that done?
Nope. Riverview Park, we got the sharp drawing signal for the building.
Okay.
And that's being reviewed.
And then when are we gonna, is that bid been done already? Riverview Park, or is that a bid that hasn't gone out yet?
As part of the SIP project.
Part of the whole project?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I understood that.
Mhm.
Are you gonna look at those shop plans?
Can you send me the shop drawing?
I can do that.
Be nice, you're a
Yeah.
concrete guy.
Who's the supplier? Shane?
Okay. It's the easy set of them.
Anybody have any questions for East Union or Riverview Park, commissioners? Corey, Moose Club Park furnace.
Still waiting on prices.
Have you got any information for us on the generator at that? Is that Moose Club Park,
Moose Club Park, yeah.
the generator?
Yep. So Sherbon is actually looking at it as well, and they're talking with an engineer, because that building's unique, because it's a single phase that comes into the building, and there's two inverters to boost it to 3-phase. So they're actually having a hard time figuring out exactly how many KW generator is really called for, because they've gotten a couple different opinions on what it needs.
Who's got opinions? Your generator contractors? Or
Yeah.
your-
So they have all the information for the inverters and everything that comes into the building for an engineer to look at, to make sure they are actually sizing the right size generator for the
So-
application.
So it goes to say that there's no 3-phase on the road.
Yeah, no 3-phase.
that. Inverters. Another thing to burn up. All right, so you're gonna continue to work on that, and then you'll make a presentation to the commission when you have some
Yes.
information for us? Okay, we did the warrants.
Now, is somebody going to make a motion to pay the
Well, we-
invoice Mike submitted today?
We
or-
can, when we get, where is it? In our
That's what we,
packet?
that was
Yeah,
part of, it was in your packet, it has to do with East Union and Riverview Park. This is the one Mike just submitted, but,
This, I'm looking at it.
yeah,
This looks something like this.
it's stapled, it's. You have it right underneath the agenda, you should have it. Here, I'll give you mine.
I had an agenda, that's all I had.
No, you had this was part of it, but I'll give you
It
that
was
one.
there somewhere.
Is it under this?
You can get
It's under my minutes, Lynn.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
So what was the total contract, Mike? $299,960?
For Riverview and,
And they're looking for an $86,000 disbursement at this time?
yes,
In your opinion, is that a appropriate amount to disperse?
yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this final? Final payment?
First payment,
First,
first
first,
payment.
first.
First payment.
Got a few to go.
And a total retainage for the project of 4541, or is there more that will be, I'm just thinking for the PO, what should the retainage be?
Oh, that will increase. They're gonna withhold you're gonna withhold 5% from every pay
5%,
rate.
okay.
Now, Mike, is this classified as an upgrade at this point?
I guess it depends how you define upgrade.
Well, because there's a difference which funds we draw from.
Yeah, he wants to know if he can use accessibility funds to pay for this.
If it's an upgrade, we're allowed to use our accessibility funds to pay
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, I wouldn't see a problem with that.
So use accessibility.
Commissioners, what do you think?
Be part of the motion then to
What do you think,
indicate
Daniel?
that it's a
The-
capital improvement.
I mean, we can
Yeah.
take it out of our regular funds, but if we can use accessibility fees, we should be always looking to use them
Absolutely.
whenever we can.
But-
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the
Now,
purpose is to.
Now, when we get to Riverview, that's a definite
Right.
upgrade.
And
Oh,
it's all
yeah.
the same
Yeah,
It's all in the same contract.
yeah.
contract.
And then when Corey comes in with the contract for the generator, that's an upgrade. That all stuff is upgrading our systems, so that is all eligible for those
Yeah,
funds.
it's a replacement basically, and that's part of,
Be careful I use the word replacement, because replacement could indicate in kind.
but that's still part of the accessibility.
Okay, so yeah, put that in your motion.
All right, so I think we all concur that we're going to try to use accessibility funds for this?
Yep.
Okay. All right, then, at this time, is there any discussion on this amount, 86,269?
Nope.
Nope. David, did you have something you wanted to say?
I don't know.
That covers mobilization and roof replacement so far.
A motion then to approve the payment of $86,296 to Sherburne for their contract for, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the word there, for their contract on the East Union Riverview pump stations. And that to be paid as from our capital improvement accessibility funds.
I'll second the motion.
Mike, on line 1, mobilization, insurance, and bond, $14,985.
Yeah,
What is mobilization insurance? I know what insurance bonds are. What's mobilization? That's moving equipment to the site? What'd they move to the site?
Downstairs.
And they want 100% of the mobilization?
we included in the email to them back that obviously they can't bill any more against that, so.
Okay. I would like, in our future bids, I'd like an explanation of mobilization. I want to know what mobilization encompasses. It's a very general term that they're throwing a large number at. And I'd like to know what we're paying for, $15,000 for mobilization. And we can still ask for that prior to we've already signed a contract, so we really can't ask now on this one. But in future contracts, I think we need to know what mobilization is.
But yeah, it's,
It's a huge number.
yeah, well, you know, we say in the contract that it's limited to no more than 5% of the total project.
But what is
Mob
it?
and demo together.
I want to know what it is. I want to know what it
Getting
is.
all of their equipment up to the site, getting.
I could understand if they're hauling excavators and dozers and rock trucks and stuff to a site. That's what mobilization used to be in the old days.
Yeah.
I want to find out what it is in future contracts and what it's going to be classified as.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
Do you want the signed one that he's given me, or do you want to take it and email it back to me, or do you want me to take it and email it to you?
Mike, I can sign one right now and hand it to you. Is that what you want?
That's fine.
And then you can sign one for me too. Does that work?
Yeah, works for me. I'm gonna scan it anyway.
Today, 9th? 11th?
11th. Should have been the 9th. Couple minutes left.
We got time. I got a couple things myself. Mike, coming over your way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of items under other business unless someone else has something first. Okay, I would like to discuss our new employee Keith. His probationary period is going to be ending very shortly, and if anyone doesn't have an objection, I'd like to make a motion that we accept Keith as a full-time employee and state that he has completed his probationary period satisfactorily. That opens up the avenue for him to use the vehicle now as a sewer employee on a full-time basis and be charged accordingly through the finance department. Do you have anything on that, Daniel?
Nope.
David? I need a second on the motion.
Second the motion.
Motion's been made, seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Do you have it, Lynn?
To accept Keith as a permanent employee?
Yes, completed his probationary period satisfactorily. And then that
Okay.
makes it available for him to begin using the sewer pickup on a full-time basis as a sewer employee, with all the regular rules. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Second thing is, I called Manchester Environmental Protection last week, and I spoke to Fred McNeil, who's the boss over there at Manchester. And the rate increases that the ratepayers are going to be paying in the future years are not applicable to us. Our agreement stands based on our treatment units and gallons submitted, so we are not going to see a 9% increase next year and on in the near future. But I asked him directly, and he said, no, those rate increases do not apply to the town of Goffstown. And I also asked Lynn to try to schedule the Albert Street residents for our next monthly meeting, if they want to come in and ask questions. Could we have a plan available for that night to put up on the board? And that way, if they have any questions about what we're doing or how we're doing it. I did go back to Adam one more time. I took a run at him for the road, and Adam is considering reconsidering the road, because briefly I explained to him he could put in 4 leach and catch basins on that road at a very low cost to the town, and then we could share in the binder pavement and the top payment, and that road would be finished and done instead of all patched together. I kind of put it on his plate. Does he want us to leave the road trench patched? So he is reconsidering his decision, and we will find out more about that. It could execute a contract change at some point, Mike, but I'm sure we can handle that as an addendum to the contract,
Yeah,
right?
change order.
Okay, good. So I will report from what the Public Works Director tells me at our next monthly meeting. I'll have it ironed out by then. Okay, the last item that I know about is the letter. Lynn brought our letter back to us that Dave did a draft copy on, and she seems to have some requests. Lynn, could you please explain what we're going on?
Yes, I was getting ready to do this, and a few of the people in the town hall saw me doing it and were looking at it, and they were questioning the purpose of sending out the attachment. And they were also reading the letter. And what they suggested is, I put a couple of different changes here. They said as customers, when they looked at it, you lost them after the first paragraph. And they said little is better, and that they would not read they wouldn't even look at the rest of the pages. And I'm just thinking the cost of all those pages, the amount of work to do it, to have nobody read it, number one, I would suggest not doing the attachment, because we do tell them where they can find that information, and then we also give them the website. That was one thing. Then I kind of changed the letter around a little bit so that the important information was in the first paragraph and not throughout the letter. So I left what you had, but after that first sentence, I added the sentence you had down further where it says how much it's increasing to, and then I left everything else in that first paragraph complete. And what I did is instead of the second paragraph there, I moved paragraph 3 to make it paragraph 2, because that explains it all, and then I will put paragraph 3 and the rest in the order it is.
Mr. Chair, Lynn is a wonderful editor. She has good ideas.
I was just talking to the other people, that's what they were,
We're gonna lose you to some newspaper. It's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be
So
too
the,
bad.
I don't think so.
So let's stop throwing the heat on her right now. Let's just move on to the letter. So you want to eliminate the sentence in the more information paragraph and updated version? You're going to eliminate that sentence because it's stricken,
Yes,
Lynn?
yes.
And then you want to add, if you have any questions, please contact the sewer department?
Yes,
And then you're going to move the people around, it looks like at the bottom, and identify myself as the chairman?
yes,
It looks like it'll still fit on one page.
yes.
So, what we can do is we can vote on this tonight as the changes have been made and the deletion of the last pages. And then Lynn can retype it and send us a clean copy in our email. And then we can say yay or nay to the clean copy, and then you can produce the letter and mail it out.
Yes.
So,
A motion then to approve the letter going to all our customers,
the amended letter?
amended as per the copy Lynn provided this evening, which includes just the letter itself with no enclosures.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention, motion passes.
Thank you.
Related matter, Mr. Chair, one for Dan and one for you. Our current website mentions $400 a year in 2 different locations, and with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to provide this piece of paper to the Chief of IT so that those 2 pages will now reference 450.
And are you gonna cite when these changes are gonna come into?
I'd like to make the changes effective when the letter is mailed.
It'll probably go out late next week, because what I realized was I have to, all the new people, all the name changes and address changes that have happened since the bill went out in November have to be, I have to go in and update all those, which I just had Scott update the
So-
system, so I'll do that.
Just let me know when the letter gets
We'll
mailed.
do it
Should be next
we'll do them
week.
And
simultaneously.
then
Yeah.
simultaneously, I coordinate with Chief of IT, and these
Okay.
2 changes will be made on our website.
I have one last quick item, and I'll be quick.
One thing.
Daniel,
Speaking
ready?
of the website, and the town website's being like overhauled, do you think there'll be any issues with our section?
I've not received any feedback as to what the town's doing with all the websites. I'm assuming that the functionality of our pages will basically be the same.
Okay, the last thing is, and David brought this to my attention, the attorney wanted to know where our sewer use, treatment use chart was in our sewer use ordinance. in the appendix. It's a blank page,
Appendix A is entitled Rates.
and it's a blank page. So at this time, it is published on our website. In your opinion, Mike, do we have to go through hoops to add that information as Appendix A and insert it into our sewer use ordinance?
It's already referenced.
All right, so I would think that it would be appropriate to pull that information off of the website as it states and produce an Appendix A? A, you said?
You'd like me to draft an Appendix A for you?
Well, yeah, if you just want to pull whatever the information is on the website, make it mirror into our sewer use ordinance so that it appears in the ordinance. Because
It was in there, I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, it was in there.
Yeah,
Should the appendix state a process, how a rate is determined?
No, just tell them what it is.
Just tell a
Just say
flat number?
how we figure it out. We use the state chart, whatever's on the website that tells people how to determine sewer rates. That's what I want to have.
Okay.
I don't want any different words, because that'll become conflicting.
Thank you for clarifying.
We'll keep it as simple as
I'll
possible.
bring back a draft for the next commission.
Perfect, and then by voice vote, we can insert that into the sewer use ordinance?
yeah, it's supposed to be part of it anyway.
Okay,
Yeah, it is.
it's a blank page.
When I open it up on the website, it just appendix A blank and then it
Yeah,
goes
it's-
appendix B.
somehow it didn't get uploaded,
Okay.
but it was.
Could you
it
look
was
at,
part
can
of
you
it.
look at what the old one was?
This is,
What was prior to when we redid our sewer use ordinance? You said it was in there, right, Mike?
Yeah,
Is there a way to find out what the wording was before it got omitted accidentally? Is that something that you know about?
those files
It
reside
may have
in
been
the coil
blank,
scanner
too.
now, so I'll have to
Well,
look.
let's just look into it and make sure we can include that in our use ordinance so that we are consistent. We got 21 minutes before the planning people all arrive, so we want to hang around and be friendly with each other, or anybody want to go home?
Hell no.
No, no.
You wanna get to the budget
I had to
meeting,
go to the
right?
budget meeting, yeah.
All right. Motion from someone for adjournment, please?
motion to
Motion
adjourn.
by, for adjournment,
I'll second.
seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, GTV.